Alois HaShachar, or maybe just going to bed, some of you, I don't know. Right? But nevertheless, dawn is when fasts begin. So with the exception of Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, which are the two fasts which begin the night before, all fasts are only fasts that we fast during the day. And when does the fast begin? From dawn, right? Even though the sun hasn't come up yet, nevertheless, that's considered to be the beginning of the day. So here, what have we got over here? We've got dawn right now, right, which is Alois, is at 4:48. 12 minutes to 5 in the morning. That's dawn.
That's when you start the fast?
That's when the fast begins. If there was a fast, there'd be a fast in Hashem in a few weeks' time, whatever. Actually, more than a few weeks. I'm sorry. In about 5 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time even, which is Asara B'Teves. So then, whatever. The fast begins with the dawn. Nates, which is when the sun comes up, is at 6:02.
But you can't see the sun.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. We're working. We're talking about what the time. What we're looking at the time that the sun would come up if it wasn't overcast, right? I mean, the sun is rising up there, just that we can't see it. So let's leave this open over here and let's have a look and see what we've got. We've got Alois, right? Alois is the first stop in our day, which is dawn, and that's the day. That's the time when all mitzvahs begin. All daily mitzvahs are going to begin. Not all. Most daily mitzvahs that come in the daytime are going to appear. They're going to start. The obligation is going to start with Alois. So, for example, we just went through Sukkot, right? When's the first time that you can start waving your lulav and esrog on making a bracha of your lulav and esrog during the day? After Alois, once the dawn has broken, at that point it's okay to start doing that. However, we're going to see in a minute, for various reasons, that we wait a little bit before we do this.
So you can only, laying tefillin can only be done.
Now putting on tefillin is something which is going to be a little bit later, right? Which means not very much.
By sunrise.
Not before. You can put your tefillin, and talis and tefillin can be put on before that. Right, which means that we've got like this. We've got dawn. Dawn is breaking, which means it's no longer as dark as it was. However, it's still, you've got a concept in the Gemara, which maybe you learnt together, which is the concept of being able to mishiyakir, when you can recognize somebody, a friend of yours, according to the natural light, right, which is going to be a few minutes after the dawn breaks. So over here, for example, the earliest time that you can put on your talis and tefillin is at 9 minutes past 5. That's still an hour, almost an hour, before you are before the sun comes up.
Is that this here?
Yeah, Mishiyakir. Yeah, very good.
The times differ slightly, but
what are you off by a minute or something? It's not. Oh, you've got 5:11. I've got 5:09. Whatever.
Your sets are just Jerusalem as a whole, or?
Mine is set in Yerushalayim as a whole.
This is
yours is exact because it's longitude and latitude, right? Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because over here by me sunrise is 6:02, and by you sunrise is 6:01 and 46 seconds, right? Because I don't have any seconds built into the times over here.
So that's rounded up.
This is like as can I use this one? No, okay. Here, use that. You look at that one. I'll look at. Oh, good point. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just. Okay. So what have we got over here? So we've got like this. You can start putting your talis and tefillin almost an hour before the sun comes up.
Mishiyakir.
That's called Mishiyakir. And over here by me, it's 5:09 in the morning right now here in Yerushalayim. Again, all of these times are going to vary according to where you live. Right? As you realize that when you opened up your time, it was still set for a different place, and you've got a whole bunch of different times. So it is very important to understand that wherever you are, so all of us, Baruch Hashem, living here in Yerushalayim, we're going to follow these times over here. Anybody living in a different place, even for example, if you're living in Bnei Brak as opposed to Tel Aviv, the time is going to be slightly different. It's not going to be a big difference because obviously we're not moving very far.
Just like Rick mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. Right, a minute here, a minute there in each different thing. The minute you move off into a different country, you'll see things beginning to move. Now, the bigger the country, the bigger things are going to move. So, for example, in America, the
West Coast,
the
East
difference
Coast.
between going from the West Coast to the East Coast is going to be enormous, absolutely
3 hours.
enormous. Even in England, you know, going from London up to Gateshead, the differences in times are going to be very, very marked, because you're going much further north and you're crossing over longitudes or latitudes. What are you crossing over?
Oh, I don't know. I think latitude's horizontal.
So you'll be crossing over latitudes, going up towards Gateshead, and you'll see that, you know, a difference appearing inside of the times. Now, what's the thing about the time for putting on talis and tefillin? It's 5:09 over here, and that's now the first time that you can recite the Shema as well. Now, I'm telling you like this, it's kind of important just to know all of this in order to put things into a proper order. It's true that it's permissible to recite the Shema from Mishi Akir, from the time that you can put on your talis and tefillin, but you're going to run into a slight problem over here, because the first time that you can recite the Amida is with the sun up. So let's just go back to the times over here and see what's what. We've got 5:09 is the first time that you can put on your talis and tefillin and you can recite the Shema. The problem is that you can only recite the Amida from 6:02 or 6:01 and 46 seconds, right?
That's why they take the time a little bit.
Well, it's not, you're not going to find anybody who's going to be doing this, because it means that you're stretching out completely in an unnatural fashion. You can't stretch out from the Shema to the Amida in just, you know, we're talking about just under an hour over here. It's not going to happen. Which means what a lot of people will do, if they like to daven what's called vasikim, which is what we'll talk about in a moment, what a lot of people will do is that they will put on their talis and tefillin at the first moment, and then they'll learn with their talis and tefillin before they start davening, and then they'll start davening. That davening will be calculated in order to reach the Amida at the right time.
So what does Mishakir mean?
Mishi Akir, from the time that you can recognize. And again, it's to do with this idea of recognizing an acquaintance, using natural light. Right? So again, dawn breaks, you know, just before the dawn, that's the darkest moment of the night. So as the dawn begins to break, what you're seeing is a slight lessening of the darkness. It's still too dark for you to be able to recognize an acquaintance, but after a few minutes, it's going to be okay, it's going to work, right? And then at that point, you can start putting on your talis and tefillin, and if needs be, you can recite the Shema as well. The next moment along inside of the times that we've got is something called the Nates. Nates Achama, which is sunrise. Now here again, today, sunrise was at 6:02.
What's it called?
Nates, right? Nates Achama.
The sun.
Achama, the Chama is the sun, and the Nates is as it begins to appear, sunrise. Now, what are we going to do over here? This is the moment that you're allowed to daven the Amida from. Now, when you've got a lot of early minyanim, they are called vatikin minyanim. What is happening? These are people who want to daven the Amida at the first possible moment in the day. So like I said before, in order to be able to do that, you're going to have to start davening. You know, most people start davening perhaps 40 minutes before the Nates. So let's say right now the Nates is at 6:02. Maybe they'll start davening at 6. I can't do it. 6:18. 6:22. Sorry, 5:22. They'll start davening at 5:22 in order to be able to get to the Amida at 6:02. And you'll see, it's interesting that these people that daven when you daven Vasikim, when you daven with the Nates, these people are very careful to begin the Amida with the Nates, which means that they may wait a moment until that time hits exactly, what have we got, 6:01 and 46 seconds, right? And there'll be an accurate clock.
That's why they have shurim a little bit before. You know, some people...
Yeah, for sure, right? And so sometimes you'll see, all of a sudden they'll stop just before they get to the Amida, everybody stops, and they'll wait a moment or two until it gets to the right time, and then they'll start...
Why do we give such importance to the Amida as as against, let's say, Christmas?
Oh, good question. Why do we give so much? Why do we give all of this importance to the Amidah that we daven the Amidah together with the Nates? So the idea is that the Amidah represents the Geula, it represents the redemption of the Jewish people. And the day represents the redemption as well. Right? In the writings of the rabbis, day and night are analogous to, the night is analogous to the exile, right, where nothing is clear. And the day is analogous to the redemption. So we want to daven the Amidah with the sun coming up. As the sun comes, it's very symbolic. And that's why in the bracha of Go'al Yisrael, we don't say it out loud so that people won't answer Amen, because we don't want to make any break between the Geula and the Amidah.
Hang on, say the last bit again, because that...
The bracha, in the morning, when you start the Amidah, you start with Tzu Yisrael, Kumah Bezras Yisrael, and then you get to the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Go'al Yisrael. Now, what you may have noticed is, everybody's supposed to say it, but the Chazan doesn't say it out loud. Right? The reason for that is to make sure that nobody answers Amen to the bracha. Right? Because what's the problem? The problem is that the Amidah represents the Geula, the bracha, Go'al Yisrael, God redeems Israel. We don't want any break. We don't want to make any kind of a break between the bracha of God redeeming the Jewish people and davening the Amidah, which represents the redemption itself. And that's why the Shaliach Tzibur, what does he do in order to avoid anybody saying Amen by mistake? He normally, his voice just dies out and you don't get the end. You don't hear the Yisrael at the end. That way nobody can answer Amen.
It just flows into the Amidah.
Yeah.
It becomes part of the Amidah blessing.
So you finish Go'al Yisrael and then you start Hashem Sefasai Tiftach and everybody's starting together, and it just sort of like blends itself into one. It's one thing. Yeah. Okay. So far so good. All of this has been relatively simple. Now things are going to get a little bit more complicated. We're going to have to talk about hours. Now, we've spoken about hours in the past, but this is a moment when we're going to have to start trying to actually calculate these things. What are called sha'ot zmaniyot, which are halachic hours, don't normally bear resemblance to regular 60-minute hours, right? Because halachic hours are taking the amount of daylight there is in the day and dividing it by 12. Right, so here, let's just take today as an example. Let's go from the Nates. Let's just say it's 6 o'clock. It's going to make things a little bit simpler, right? It's 6 o'clock, and Shkia is at 16:48.
Oh.
When have you got Shkia?
4:43, 43 seconds.
Really?
Yeah,
Gosh,
but
that's
you're
interesting.
going in
Something is off over here because Shkia, according to mine, Shkia is at 12 minutes to 5, which means that the night begins 18 minutes after Shkia. So 16:48 plus 18, I can't do this, is what? 6, right? It's going to be 5:06 is going to be nighttime. And yet by you, it says it's 5:21. Your sunset is earlier, and your this really is from. You have a very from app.
Why is it so?
I'll explain to you. There are two different approaches as to how to count the day, the hours.
Yeah.
One of them is the simplest approach, is the approach of the Vilna Gaon, is that you go from sunrise to sunset. Right, so we're taking, the amount of hours that there are between sunrise and sunset, dividing them by 12, and then each hour is going to be however many minutes that is, right? The Magen Avram has a different approach. He says it's from dawn to nightfall, which means you've got more time over here now in order to be able to. Right, you've got more time in order to be able to divide your 12 hours. So here, for example, Shema, the last time you can say the Shema according to the Magen Avram is 8:06. The last time you can say the Shema from the Vilna Gaon is 8:42. Right? Why is that? Because one's beginning earlier than the other one. The day begins earlier.
So MGA is Magen Avram.
MJ is Magen Avram, and Gra is the Vilna Gaon. MJ sounds like something that should be outlawed in restaurants or something, isn't it?
So the Vilna Gaon is less stringent.
It's not an Indian of less stringent. It's an Indian of you know what? With regards to the times, the practical dimension, it means that the Vilna Gaon is less stringent. Yeah,
I think this app's too firm.
it's good. It's great. It's just that you need to take into account certain things. That's all. So here, for example, go back into the times again. For example, right? If let's say somebody says to you that you want to daven, right? They want you to daven mincha gedola because you're going somewhere, right? So over here, mincha gedola is 11:53. Over here, it's 11:49. It's not the end of the world, right?
That's the earliest mincha.
That's the earliest time. We'll talk about that as well. But let's say, for example, somebody says to you here, after the first Ma'ariv, we've got to go make sure you're ready. So over here, the first Ma'ariv is going to be at 5:10. And by you, the first Ma'ariv is going to be at 5:21.
But it gave me options on the Shema. It gave me the two options, Magen Avraham.
Yeah, that's a standard.
But it doesn't give you the options for anything else. Everything else is the stringent approach. If I choose to go with the Magen Avraham for the Shema, then does it affect the way that the rest of the day?
It's not going to affect the rest of your day. It just means that you're going to have to make sure that you've davened the Shema earlier than here. So, for example, over here, the Magen Avraham, you have to finish the Shema by 8:06. If you're following the opinion of the Vilna Gaon, you have to have finished your Shema by 8:42. Which is that's a pretty big difference. So when you're davening during the week, right? When you're davening during the week, it's not the end of the world because what's going on? You're getting up early anyway. But when you're davening on Shabbat, for example, so many places they daven in a way that allows them to reach the time to recite the Shema by the Vilna Gaon, which is a later time, and they don't get there by the time of the Magen Avraham. So if you're going to take upon yourself to daven with the Magen Avraham, the Shema by the Magen Avraham, you have to know. You have to take it all into account.
Do I have to make that decision like for my life, or can I decide on the day?
I mean, it's best to make decisions that sort of run across the board. I think with something like this, I think maybe you're better off sort of. I wouldn't make any rash, hasty decisions right now about following the Magen Avraham. You can try it out, see what happens, see whether it works.
Ashkenazim and Sephardim or not?
No, not with regards to times. No. So what have we got? Okay, so we've got to the Nates. The Nates is davening with the Amidah. Now we've got to the. Okay, sorry, we've got to the halachic times now. What are called Sha'ot Zmaniyot. So if you're following the Vilna Gaon, we're going from sunrise to sunset, and that means that the day is going to be short, right? Each in the winter the days are short, in the summer the days are long. If you're following the Magen Avraham, so you've got a little bit more time because we're going from dawn until from dawn until nightfall, which is a whole lot more time than there was, and that's all going to be calculated into each hour.
So Magen Avraham is from
dawn till nightfall, and the Vilna Gaon is from sunrise to sunset. Now, according to all opinions, anyone who wants to daven the Amidah in the morning at the first opportunity, what's called Vatikin, so that's going to be done with the sunrise. Those are the minyanim that you're going to find. What do we care over here about the day according to the Vilna Gaon or the day according to the Magen Avraham? It's going to have some bearing on everything else that's going to happen throughout the day. So, for example, it says that you are supposed to finish reciting the Shema up to 3 hours into the day. Right? So here, where are we holding over here? According to the Magen Avraham, it's going to be. Well, by me it says 7:57. I don't know what it says by you.
What is this for? Magen Avraham
for the Shema, yeah?
This is 8:06.
8:06. Oh, because whatever. We're running into this problem of when the day's beginning. Right? Whatever. I'm just going to say the numbers that are over here, and we're going to ignore you. Okay? Don't take it personally. Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
just don't take it personally.
No,
So according to what it says over here, my phone. The Magen Avraham, the cutoff time for saying the Shema is 7:57, and for the Gra it's 8:42. It's a big difference, right? That's why most people. It's easier to use the time of the Vilna Gaon than it is to use the time of the Magen Avraham. That's for sure.
The Sephardim was the same thing.
So what have we got over here? Reciting Shema in the morning. You've got the first 3 hours. What are the hours, though? What are they? They're not regular hours, but rather they are halachic hours, right? So again, in the morning we're talking about short hours. In the afternoon, in the summer, I'll try that again. In the winter, we're talking about short hours. In the summer, we're talking about long hours. That's why in the summer, for example, the cut-off time for Shema could be at 9:30, because you've got much longer days, right? And there's 3 hours in the morning from sunup until the end of the third day. Each hour could be the equivalent of 72 minutes, perhaps. Over here in Israel, again, when you go different places, they're going to get even longer. So, for example, in London, in the summer, it could get light at, I don't know, let's say 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm just throwing out a number. And it won't get dark until 10:30 at night. And you've got to take that 6 o'clock to 10:30, and you've got to divide that by 12 hours, which means your hours are going to be very, very long. 85 minutes, look at that, right? Each hour in the summer in London could be as long as 85 minutes long.
Gets sunrise in London go up to 10 o'clock, something like that.
Sunset, 10:30, yeah. In the summer. It's north, it's pretty far north. Again, go up into Gateshead, go up into Glasgow, and you're talking about much later than that, at least an hour later than that. So what's the idea, right? You can have, so in the summer you may have hours that are going to last, how much, 85 minutes long in London, right? And you'll have, in the winter, they'll be much shorter than that. They'll be maybe 40 minutes long, each hour, right? Which means that it's something that's got to be kept an eye on, and every day is changing, right? Because the amount of daylight is changing every single day. There are actually only 2 days in the year, if you want to be super pedantic, there are only 2 days in the year where the halachic hours and the regular hours are 60 minutes.
Really?
Because there are only 2 days in the year when there's exactly 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night.
Is that the solstice? Is that the summer and the winter?
I think so, yeah. And that means that, again, we don't feel the difference the next day, right? You don't feel the difference. It's still 12 hours and 12 hours, but it's not. It's already 12 hours and I don't know, 7 seconds or something. And it's going to move. So that Shema, that means like this, that we need to have finished reciting the Shema, not begin. We need to have finished reciting the Shema by the end of, over here, 8:42. Right here in Yerushalayim, 8:42. If you've started the Shema by 8:42, but you haven't yet finished, so that's okay, but it's not the best way to do it. Again, what's that called? David, what's that called?
Hang on, I'm writing. What's the question?
If you start the Shema,
Yes.
but you haven't finished by 8:42,
Yes.
so it's okay, but it's not the best way to do it. What's that called?
B'diavad.
B'diavad. Excellent. Go to the top of the class. You might be a little lonely over there, but...
This is when they refer to Kiryat Shema.
Kriyat Shema, yeah.
What is Kiryat?
Kriyat means to read.
Kriyat.
Kriyat Shema. Kriyat means you're reading the Shema.
So this is saying Shema specifically in terms of the obligation
Yes.
to say Shema.
Yeah, 100%.
It's
Kriyat Torah,
reading of the-
Kriyat Shema, yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
In the Knesset, they have Kriyat L'Seder, nachon? Kriyat L'Seder. Because this is the third time I'm calling you to order, and then they throw people out, which happens relatively often, I believe.
What do you mean? What do they do?
I know, but when the Knesset members misbehave themselves and shout out and behave like a bunch of hyperactive children, so the speaker of the Knesset will call you to order, and I think he calls you to order 3 times, and if you don't pull yourself together, then you get thrown out of the plenum.
Like the House of Commons.
Probably, although I think it's a little bit more active over here than it is over there. If you, not you, obviously, everybody over here are righteous and pious and only concerned about doing the right thing. But if one were to have not recited the Shema by the time the end time is run, then you can recite the Shema, but without the brachot that become before it and after it. Which means it's always okay to recite the Shema. The Shema are Divrei Torah. They're just coming out of the Torah. So Baruch Hashem, you could recite Shema all day long. You're just reciting, you're reciting words of Torah. But if you want to fulfill the obligation of reciting the Shema inside of Tefillah, it's got to be done at the correct time and it's got to be done in the correct way. Okay. You know what? One last bit over here because it's really a continuation. What about until when are you allowed to finish davening shacharit in general? Right? So in the morning. What have we got over here? We've got...
This is tefillah.
This is what's called sof zman tefillah, the end of tefillah, right?
That's what here it just says tefillah.
Good, right?
Sof
zman tefillah is the last time that you're supposed to be reciting davening shacharis, right? So over here, according to my clock, according to my phone, it says the sof zman tefillah of the Magen Avram, which is going to be earlier than the sof zman tefillah of the Gra because he's beginning his day earlier. The sof zman tefillah of the Magen Avram is 9:05, and sof zman tefillah of the Gra is 9:36. Now again, the difference is there, yeah?
But today we davened late, and because we had the Kriyat Torah,
yeah, good.
I think we may have ended up finishing at about 9:45.
Okay, so the emphasis is like this. When it comes to davening, it's really talking about getting to the Amidah. Okay. Finishing up the Amidah. If the Amidah was finished, which I'm sure it must have been, if you started by 8:30, if it's finished by 9:36, then that's okay. The bits and the pieces that come afterwards, again, you know, it's been davened, it's okay.
But if you all go with that, you say without a brother.
Look, let's say somebody gets up late. Not anyone we know, right? Right?
Not me.
For sure not. But I mean, no one that we know. If somebody were to get up late, somebody's not feeling well, right? And they were to get up late, and it's now past 9:36, so they shouldn't daven.
Oh, okay.
They shouldn't daven shacharis. What they'll have to do is that they'll be able to daven mincha. They can daven mincha twice.
That's
right. That's what you're learning now.
Rabbi Reuven, Rabbi.
Yeah, very good. Right. It's what's called tashlumin. You can make up the amidah that's been lost, but only if it happened inadvertently. Which means that if a person says, you know what, stuff this, I'm not getting out of bed, and I'll daven mincha twice later on, it doesn't count. But if a person, for whatever the reasons, finds himself not being able to daven shacharis within the time that's been given to him, then he can daven the Amidah twice. What's fascinating about tashlumin, about making up this Amidah? Tashlumin.
Make up.
Tashlumin, which means from the word l'shalem, to pay, right? You want to pay off your debts, right? So, what's fascinating about all of this is that if a person didn't daven mincha inadvertently by mistake, they can daven the Ma'ariv Amidah twice. Now, why is that fascinating? Because the Ma'ariv already is the next day. Yeah. So you would have thought that I understand that if somebody forgot Ma'ariv, they can daven Shacharis twice. I understand if they forgot Shacharis, they can daven Mincha twice. But surely, by the time you get to Ma'ariv, you've gone into the next day, and whatever you've missed out from the day before, you can't make up. And yet the halacha says that you can. Right? That it's okay to daven Ma'ariv twice to be able to make up the mincha that you missed. What you need to know, though, when you're making up, I mean, maybe I shouldn't tell you this because it's not halacha, practical halacha that you're ever going to apply because this will never happen to you. But if you have a friend, which of course is probably somewhat uncertain, I would say, but if you have a friend, you can tell them that when they have to daven 2 amidas, they need to daven the Amidah that they're obligated to daven right now, which means, so let's say you're going to daven Ma'ariv, you're going to daven Ma'ariv Amidah twice. Your kavana, your insight, right, your intent and your concentration for the first Amidah is to fulfill the mitzvah for Ma'ariv, and then afterwards, when you daven the Amidah again, you're going to fulfill you're going to fulfill the obligation for the mincha that you missed. Which means that the Amidah that you're davening now is always going to be the one that's going to take precedence. That's the one that's the important one right now.
Actually, I think the thing is that you must say Yeah, can't say, oh, let me make up the mincha first. You got to do it, let's say, if it's Marv.
Yeah.
You got to,
Yeah, absolutely.
to the one that pertains at that moment.
Yep.
Because you need to give it more importance. Otherwise, you're always going to be.
It's not just giving it more importance. It's a halachic dimension as well, which means that right now your obligation is to daven ma'ariv.
Yeah.
So I have to fulfill my obligation first. Afterwards, I'll make up the thing that I'm not obligated to daven. I'll make that up now.
Because is that like passing over a mitzvah in some ways?
Yeah.
To do something else. Yeah. Okay.
That's why some people are very careful to daven, always to daven at the first possible moment. So they'll daven Shachris Vasikin, they'll daven Mincha at the earliest moment they can, and they'll daven Ma'ariv at the first point that they can as well, because there's also a concept of not passing over the mitzvah. Once you get to the time where it's permissible, we'll talk about it tomorrow in Mitzvah Shem, but once you get to the point where it's permissible to daven Mincha, so now you're obligated to daven Mincha. If you wait and you daven later on, it's true, you can do that, but you're obligated to daven straight away.
No, what do you mean? I don't understand.
Here, let's say Mincha, 10 to 12 Mincha, right? But you're going to daven Mincha at 4 o'clock. That's okay, you can daven Mincha at 4 o'clock, but you should know that from 10 to 12 onwards, the obligation is there upon you to daven Mincha. So some people like to fulfill their obligation straight away, not to pass up the mitzvah and push it off until later on, but rather to take care of it straight away. Good. Say it. We'll stop over here.
But you can still say the mincha, even if because you missed it or whatever, after sunset.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. 100%.